My name is Lazarus Ember. For those of you who don't know me, I'll give you an introduction, a little bit of introduction to me and to the course. And we'll then look at the first main element of it, which is compression clothing. So I was working a little bit backwards. I was diagnosed at the end of 2018. So 2019, 2020, 21, 22. And I was hospitalized again at the end of 2019, but that had to do with a different health problem. I have a second terminal condition, EPGA or Yerg-Strauss syndrome. So yeah, things were really piling up with a second illness as well. But since the second illness, where I went down to 66 kilos in weight, I'm 5'11". Since then, my reversal has been fairly steady. So the period before 2018 was really a period of a lot of confusion, and it wasn't plain sailing. I was discovered to have muscle loss as far back as 2010, and I went to the GP with strange twitching in my legs in 2014. I found motor neuron damage in 2017, and 2018 I got the diagnosis, and it was confirmed by Dr. Bedlack in 2020. So one of the things that was different between me and other people is that when I started to notice some changes in my health, I responded to them early. And I remember very clearly thinking that I don't know what's happening. This was more around 2015, 2016. I don't know what's causing this. Because I didn't research it. I didn't look into neurological problems or anything. I had no idea. But I could already notice that there were times when the symptoms were stronger and there were times when the symptoms were weaker. And this told me that whatever this was, it was possible to influence the trajectory of the illness. And so by the time I was diagnosed, I understood that very, very clearly. I had loss of mobility in my right leg, particularly the ankle and toes. At one stage, they didn't move for a number of months. And every day I pursued a strategy of stimulating muscle and stimulating movement in the ankle, toes, and hip. And I got there with it. I also at that stage changed what I was taking in terms of supplements. I had been on a drug from the neurologist called Lyrica, which is supposed to help with nerve conditions, and it made me worse. I took it for 6 months, and during that 6 months, I also stopped taking cannabis as well, which I had found was very good for reducing the twitching and the restless legs. And during the 6 months I was off the cannabis and on the Lyrica, the restless legs were quite insane. The twitching got a lot worse. I ended up being very depressed, and Lyrica is supposed to be an antidepressant as well. So I immediately, after 6 months, when I realized what I was doing, I immediately came off the Lyrica and went back on the cannabis. And you're not supposed to do that, but I had no problem at all with not being on Lyrica anymore. The cannabis was giving me that much support. So I had muscle loss though as far back as 2010, which was before I started a university degree in maths and philosophy. And so how long did the illness start before that to cause muscle damage? I'm not too sure, but I think it's very fair to say that I have one of the slower progressing versions of ALS. And that has been to my advantage. It's given me more time to be able to influence my health in a positive direction. And this is kind of what this course is about, is the things that we can do to influence our health in a positive direction, which won't take away, or sorry, which won't give ourselves more stress, because we need to keep stress to a minimum. And the protocol that I do takes that into account. In fact, that's a large part of optimum healing state, which is the course I do in focusing on the emotions and the mind and the strategies that we have to develop in order to take on increasing challenges, but decreasing the stress. So that's the optimum healing state course. And it's, for me, an essential part of the protocol. So really, I've broken my protocol into a number of different elements. There's optimum healing state, I've just mentioned. There's healing meditation as well, which is, in a way, the deepest part of the protocol. It's really looking at what I can heal right now within myself, how I can develop my ability as a healer to heal myself. That's what healing meditation is. It's a step into developing a different paradigm shift, into entering a healing space and embracing whatever it is we need to embrace in order to heal, or to let go whatever we need to let go of, so that we can free ourselves up and free our energy up so that we can heal. So this course that I'm doing over the next 12 weeks, this course is focused on the more practical elements. So for the next 5 or 6 weeks, I think it is, we're looking at the physical equipment and physical therapies. That's followed up by an introduction to exercise, and what's very important is the approach to exercise, because when we think of exercise, we think of doing something energetic. Usually exercise is related to putting all our energy and trying as hard as possible. That's the normal way we think about exercise. That method is not suitable for this illness. So we need a radically different approach to exercise. And so we look at what that approach is, and we look at certain areas of the body and work that out. And if people want to look at other areas of the body as well, we can do that then too. And the third part of this course then is look at the supplements that I've taken. And it's looking as well at the different functions of the body, the different parts of the body, how we can make the different parts of the body healthier. So it's not just about the central nervous system, it's not just about neurology, it's about our gut health, it's about our breathing, and that's divided up to, I think, 8 or 9 different areas. So we try to have a focus on each one of them, and hopefully what you'll do is to see areas that you can improve, that either that you should be improving or that you can improve, and so we have a look at improving that. I'm not a neurologist and I'm not a
Ich hoffe, ich habe es richtig eingestellt.
a nutritionist. So I'm not telling you from the perspective of a specialist, of a medical specialist or nutritional specialist. I'm just talking from the perspective of somebody who has reversed ALS. And as one of my friends said to me a while ago, he said to me that talking to you, Lazarus, gives me hope because I've seen you improve, and so I know that's possible for me to do as well. And it's great to be able to share that and to share the methods that I have used. So we won't necessarily take a full hour each day. It'll depend a little bit on questions, or questions you have, or what you want to talk about. And you can put your questions into the chat at any stage. Otherwise, most of the time, I'll have kind of two topics, certainly for this first section of the course. I'll be introducing two types of therapy or equipment, and so we can have a bit of a question and answer section after each introduction. So I think maybe that will do as an introduction to me and what we're doing here. Good to see you here, and it's a little bit surprising. Over 20 people, new people signed up for the course. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe there's a problem with email or something like that. I'll try and check with it later. First piece of equipment that I want to talk to you about is compression clothing. And some of you will have heard of compression clothing, and you may have heard of it. It's often recommended for people taking long flights. People wear compression stockings to cover the calves. The compression stockings or socks, they increase blood flow, and this decreases pooling of the blood in the feet, in the lower legs. Because there's increased blood flow, there's a reduced possibility of blood clots. Now, blood clots are not a significant part of ALS, but compression clothing increases blood flow. That's it. That's enough reason to warrant the widespread use of compression clothing, because we have increased blood flow in our limbs, in our feet, in our legs, in our arms. That means that our feet, our hands, our arms, our legs are going to be healthier. It's as simple as that. We can look at it from a different side as well, in terms of athletes who also use compression clothing for their training. And compression clothing give an extra resistance to the body. So if you're wearing compression clothing, you're putting an extra pressure on your muscles because there's a restraint there. So when your muscles are being exercised, there's an added restraint. So we can use compression clothing as a passive way of exercising or stimulating the muscles. If we're exercising and we have compression clothing going on, for instance, so if I'm typing, sometimes I'll type with compression gloves. Yeah. And so that increases the blood flow in the fingers and the hands. It reduces the possibility of straining them as well, because it's harder for them to move as far. I remember at one stage coming out of hospital, and I was in a fairly low state physically. So, you know, if I picked up a cushion, for instance, with my right hand, especially, left wasn't quite as bad, but right hand, my fingers would all just, they would just bend backwards. They would just bend backwards. I couldn't really do it. They just bend out because there was no strength in the fingers to actually keep the fingers tight. So the cushion would just bend them out. So wearing things like compression gloves help to prevent strains like that, where you're overextending your fingers or your feet or your legs or any part of your body. So it gives this support, which is really useful and helps your fingers and limbs not get as strained. So what I've done is put in, where is it now? Let me share with you. Let's see, is it here? So here, this is a page from the newest newsletter. So it gives you examples of compression clothing. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this, and I'll see what questions you have. So compression gear increases blood flow, gives a passive exercise to muscles, reduces fasciculations, and protects from injury. And that was one thing I missed. Compression clothing also reduces fasciculations. So if you have a lot of twitching in your arms or in your calves or in your upper leg, if you wear compression clothing, that twitching will reduce. Cramping can reduce as well. It varies a little bit. I found that I couldn't wear compression clothing when I was sleeping. It was that passive exercise was too stimulating for my muscles whilst I slept. I've tried this a few times and always had the same result. I was sleeping, and then I would wake up in the middle of the night, and my legs will have started twitching. And this only ever happens when I was asleep. And once I take off the compression clothing, the twitching dies away. So there really is a passive level of exercise wearing compression clothing. And there are some ins and outs to it. So if you look at the top picture here, where we've got a typical athlete's compression clothing, a full top and full leggings. The full leggings are great if you can get them on without too much difficulty, because people have different levels of mobility. So depending on your level of mobility, this is a very difficult thing, or it's a very good thing to do. And covering the legs, which I wear more or less all year round. Sometimes I'll take a few days off during the summer. If it's warm enough, I might, but I pretty much wear compression gear all year round. Now, there is one warning on the wearing compression top, which is great for the shoulders. It's great for the arms. I mean, it is very good for all your muscles, but there is one drawback with it. If your chest muscles are quite degraded, then the effort that it takes for you to breathe could be substantial. And if you're wearing compression gear on top of that, then you're trying to push through that restraint as well, because you're wearing the gear, So you're giving yourself an exercise just by doing it. Now, when you're wearing compression gear on your arms and legs, and your arms and legs are at rest, you're getting that passive exercise, but you're not moving your arms or legs. So you're not really working, they're not really working hard. But we're breathing all the time. So our muscles are working all the time to do that. And if you're wearing a compression top, there is the possibility that your upper muscles, your respiratory muscles will get tired more quickly, and you can even reduce breathing because of the extra effort that you need to do anyway, and then there's an effort on top of that as well. And I know this from experience. I've been through this. I've done it. I've had reduced breathing. It took me a while to figure out why my breathing had actually reduced, and it was because there was too much exercise going on wearing a compression top. So these are little tips and tricks that hopefully will speed up your use of these products. So if you can't wear a compression top, which now I can, I know I stopped doing it for a year and a half or something until my body had improved through other avenues. And I realized that it was important to replace that as much as possible. Now, I got some compression shoulder gear, which just didn't work at all. So I don't have it up there. So what I did instead of wearing the top was I had gloves that you've seen. And also, if you look down towards the bottom, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen or not, where we have a long sleeve that goes from above the elbow and covers part of the hand. In fact, there's two here on my page. The first one on the right, on my right, if you'll see, is that all the fingers are sticking out. So the strap just comes between the thumb and the fingers. So that leaves the fingers completely free. And it can be easier to put on for some people. Sometimes you don't like to have your fingers covered most of the time. It's nice to have that hand feeling more natural without wearing a kind of glove a lot of the time. The other picture on my left at the bottom, you'll see is long sleeved, or the sleeve starts from above the elbow again, but covers some of the fingers a bit like my compression gloves. And it's perfectly good if you can go along and put it on, and you can wear this throughout the day. You can experiment wearing it at night as well if you want, and just to see what effect it has. You won't do any damage to yourself by wearing any of these. It will increase your blood flow. Now, so yeah, and you can see there's a couple of pictures of gloves as well. Some sleeves I found have very strong elastic on them, which I found was too tight for me. Some gear I found was too light for me or too loose. So there's a learning experience in getting the right products, and you just have to take whatever chances that you feel like taking in order to do that. There's no clear answer. For some people, the gloves are too small. For some people, the gloves are too big, and so on. On the bottom right-hand side of this last picture is a compression glove, which really covers quite a bit of the wrist area as well. Longer than mine. It goes up to about there in the second picture. I don't actually have those ones, and it has the fingers which are free. So that might be an interesting one to get. I think the long-sleeved one, and if you have any difficulties with your fingers, then having the long sleeved one up above the elbow is probably the best one easiest one to get on, and I think is the best one. That one I found it looking at bicycle cycling extras. That's the category that it came under. So if we go over to if we want to take an alternative to the full bottoms, to the leggings, if they're too difficult to put on, then you might find full-length single leg leggings. I haven't seen them, but they could be there. Otherwise, we have in the blue, we have calves. This compression gear covers the calves, and well, it's as simple as that. It covers the calves, and a lot of your strength from your foot is actually in your calf muscles. So ensuring you have a good blood supply there, that you're supporting its stimulation, you're reducing fasciculations. So it's all good. And these are quite easy to put on, that they're not difficult to put on. I've seen long stockings which cover the entire foot and go up to the knee, but these ones which cover the entire foot, they're often very difficult to put on. Very, very difficult. And I have them, I don't use them. They're simply too hard. And there's one more picture. If you can see, we've got it in white and black, which are covering the ankle. So the toes are free. So this is compression footwear, and they're very good, very effective. They are quite strong. So you need somebody with good fingers to put them on, but they are designed better than compression socks, full-length compression socks. So that they are a good product. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I've ordered quite a few different gloves, and I cannot get them on. Even my husband can get them on. But are you saying if the fingers are free, that's still beneficial?
It's still beneficial, definitely.
Okay.
If well, you might be able to test it with your husband, but if you see him squeezing something, if he squeezes a cup or a table or anything, you see that most of the strength from the squeeze actually comes from muscles in the forearm. It's not actually strength in the fingers themselves. The strength is really, if you move your fingers, if you can do that with your fingers or get somebody else to do it, you can feel the muscle movement is all here. So that's actually that's why that's the best one to be getting, is one which is covering the forearm. So if you check in cycle accessories and look for compression sleeve, then you should be able to get that one, and just the one with the fingers free. So it's one of the best pieces of gear, easiest to use. And you might still have to try a couple of different types. I don't know. I found them very easy, and they had a good stretch in them as well. So yeah, they're the ones to go for.
Okay, thanks.
No problem at all. So yeah, this is I think this is the basic introduction to compression gear and to compression wear. Really is to start using them. I don't know if there's any compression gear that can be used for the neck or not. There might be. I must actually have a look at that, because there are cycling hats and cycling gear which cover the neck and the head, and which are a little bit tight, but they're quite thin because they're for going underneath the helmet, a cycling helmet. So they tend to be quite thin. They might have a compression element to them. I don't know. And some compression tops, if I just go back to this photograph, again, in the full top, some of them actually have a high collar. So it goes for about an inch around the neck. Oops. No, I forgot I wasn't sharing that. Yeah, so some not the one I'm wearing today, but some will go for about an inch around the neck. So people might find some benefit from that. But again, they have to be careful that there isn't a big problem with breathing. Because when you have that big problem with the breathing, I mean, it would be good to put it on for a while, but you know, we usually have to be very conservative with our energy. So we want to do things which are as easy as possible to do and as effective as possible as well. I suppose we can put it in here. If you can't wear a compression top, you should consider wearing a thermal top. Because one of the things I've noticed is that people don't credit the impact that the cold makes. Not even cold. If it's less than 22 degrees, I'll feel that in my hands, I'll feel it in my feet. You know, and I know some people go up to, 28 degrees. If it's less than 28 degrees for them, their symptoms will get worse. So the heat helps our body stay in a relaxed state. So staying warm and wearing a thermal top so that our body is nice and cozy. And I've heard and found it myself that wearing thermal gear, it's a bit like giving, the body having a hug, because it's covered everywhere. And so you're giving your body that sort of warm hug, and it relaxes. The body is more relaxed with the heat, and we want the body to relax. Because if we take things on a scale where the body's very relaxed, you're a bit of a couch potato, really, really relaxed, there's no tension there. When we're in that state, the motor neuron signal going through us is at its lowest. Where our body is tense or if we're twitching and cramping, obviously the motor neuron signal is a lot higher then. And so we want to bring down the motor neuron signal as much as we humanly can. We want to bring that motor neuron signal down. So we want to stay away from the cold, and we want to be in a state of warm relaxation really all the time. And it's taken me a couple of years before I could use cold showers. We'll talk about heat and heat equipment another day. But yeah, I couldn't use cold showers or cold water because of the impact on it. Now I can, but I have to be careful doing that I don't actually get cold. So at this stage, of reversing, I have a kind of a leeway, which I didn't have a year or 2 years ago. So there is a progression, there is a change, a return on the abilities that we used to have as our reversal progresses. So yeah, a compression clothing, and some people use that as thermal clothing, but there is a different type of clothing called thermal wear, which isn't actually tight. So you're not going to get a compression on your respiratory muscles, but your respiratory muscles, your chest and so on, will be warm with that thermal gear, supporting your ability to relax better. So I think that was good just to throw that in. So I'll just check with you and see if you have any questions.
Yes, Lazarus, I have a question. I've tried various compression socks, and I used to wear, during flights, and they always were uncomfortable. What is the minimum amount of time per day you need to wear it to get therapeutic effect?
I just asked you, what was uncomfortable about them?
Too tight. It's too tight, and especially at the ends, the rubbers or whatever is just, even I tried bigger sizes, still too tight.
Did they have a kind of elastic ribbon in them?
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't had them, but I have those with the elastic ribbon at an end. I've had them for sleeves for the arm, and I found they were all too tight as well. So you can get compression gear, leggings, and ones for the calves, which don't have this ribbon of elastic, don't have an elastic band. They're just stretchable all the way. And I found that these were good.
Yeah, I have to look into it some more, because some of them I couldn't even wear when my hands were perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't pull them on.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the compression socks that I had, which were too tight as well. And they were, I don't know what they were made of. They were a bit ridiculous. And it is trial and error, but you need to get ones which don't have the elastic band on them, because they're too tight, and that's exactly what I found as well.
But back to my question.
Oh, how long?
First a day. What you found? Did you notice anything?
This is wearing the compression clothing. It's a subtle effect. So if you're looking for a profound or a marked thing, then I'm not sure, and it depends on your own, standard of health and how you are. There's so many factors there. All I know is that the longer that you do it, the better. That's simply it. And yeah, I just don't wear them at night. I tried wearing them at night, and that for me was overdoing it. But otherwise, during the day, and you might notice that after you take it off, maybe the muscle feels a bit more tired. It should feel more relaxed, yeah, you have that extra blood flow going through it, and with the compression, I wonder if you have the what's the other stuff? Not the blood, the lymphatic fluid. I don't know whether the compression gear helps with lymphatic drainage or not. It might, because you're getting this passive stimulation of your flesh, and lymphatic drainage only takes place through movement of one kind or another. It might help, certainly won't do any harm. So maximizing the amount of time that you can wear the compression gear, that's really the aim. Well, obviously, if you're wearing stuff which has an elastic band on it, then that could be actually disrupting your blood supply if that's too tight. And so that's definitely something to avoid. We don't want to do that. Yeah. So it's a very, I can't give you a simple, straightforward answer to it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose, to make it worth the effort of putting on, you're kind of looking at, you'd want to be wearing it for 6 hours or something like that. You know, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you're putting it on for half an hour or an hour, I'm not sure whether it would really be worth the effort.
I figured that if, like you said, 4 or 6 hours, I could probably handle it. Can never sleep in it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what might be interesting, you know, if you're doing it for a number of hours, then it might be interesting some days to do it, to put them on before you're more physically active, and other days to put it on when you're spending more time relaxing, and see what your own experience is, because really we have to teach ourselves. We have to learn from our own experiences. You know, that's what I've done. That's what's informed my choices, has been learning from my own experiences and applying the small things that I've learned over time, which is what I'm sharing with you guys.